Welcome back to the Nullified Take channel on YouTube, where Kahuna and I've got the TNT takes for you on the Challenge 39, episode 8. That's right, we're back at a very different time compared to what we normally would do our lives. But this is sort of the time zone that worked for both of us today, this weekend. And we're happy to at least be able to do it live. Chris, I already saw your comment. Thank you so much for staying up until midnight to be here with us. Maybe pop a couple of questions in there in advance, anything you want to chat about. So if you do fall asleep, I might not bring it up immediately, but I'll make sure to bring it up throughout the conversation, and you could go back and have a listen to it if there's anything specific you wanted for us to dive into. But Kahuna, it's great to be live. It's great to be talking the challenge with you. We haven't had many opportunities this season to talk live, right?
It's been tough. Schedules, life, stuff gets in the way. But one thing that remains constant is that there's always lots and lots of challenge stuff to discuss. Even if we can't, it keeps going. And it seems like we're always going to have something, an episode, a season. The gaps in between are not there anymore. So no matter how busy we get, the challenge is always there for us, Chris. And it's waiting for us to come to.
Yeah, it's kind of like, taxes and death tax and bananas. They're always going to be there, right?
That's it.
Yeah, I mean, it's again another episode. We get Big T early on in this episode coming back triumphant, the first person to actually beat a champion this season, and she's got a little bit of a swagger in her step now, Kahuna, and I feel like it's well deserved.
Yeah, we didn't really get to talk last week about that episode because I was sick, unfortunately. So you covered it solid. Great job, by the way. But yeah, great. Definitely, the swagger is deserved. She beat a champion. Kat, arguably, 2 from 2, big champion. But I do have questions, right? We saw Jordan come in as the champion. He gets a challenge, which is all about endurance, right? Spoiler alert for this episode. Devin gets one that includes, it's basically a puzzle, counting, right? Kat, being probably the smallest champion, gets a weight-based drag around thing. It was a weird sort of, if they're favoring the champions, Kat didn't get the production favoritism. Kaz didn't get the production favoritism at all in that one, but it was good to see Big T back, and I'm glad that, I like when someone's against the odds and the house seems to be against them and they come back in the house just to sort of shove it in their face a bit. I always like that.
Yeah, listen, I don't think that Kaz has really earned that aura yet of being intimidating. Like, she's won the Challenge UK, no one can take that away from her. She won the Challenge World Championship next to probably the most dominant current challenger that we have on our roster, with Jordan. So not that she didn't pull her weight there, but again, it just didn't have that aura, similar to how when Devin walked out this week, I didn't feel like that aura was there. But, hats off to him. He did deliver. And, it's a sign of a champion when you're coming back as a champion that you have to deliver. And you can say, yes, it was a numbers thing that he ended up doing. But ultimately, like Neru said, we all learn to count in kindergarten. Like, it's not like they needed to solve a mathematical puzzle out there or anything. Like, they made it that easy for Devin this week.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that was really, really great in that challenge, even though we're skipping ahead, Chris, is the edit. The fact that they could make a thing where they basically drag some boxes around and then count. Any way suspenseful and exciting at all. It involved a lot of heavy metal music, some cuts to cameras within the boxes, and there was a lot of very good sort of smart editing to make it feel exciting in the slightest, because there were 2 grown men in peak physical condition, counting stuff in a box. Like,
yeah, not the most exciting of all of the eliminations we've seen so far. Chris coming in very hot with the comments here, right off the rip, saying these contenders are so dumb. Their strategy is terrible. We will be talking about that strategy because some interesting things happen here this week on the challenge. But very early on here, we get Horacio sitting on the bed with Bernard. And they have this conversation where Bernard is saying, man, I like Horacio. He's a good kid, but his social game stinks. And I mean, Bernard's the person to deliver that message, right, Kahuna? I mean, she's got all the social skills in the world that when she tries to give you advice, you better perk up your ears and listen to her because you know she's got some golden nuggets to share.
yeah, as far as social game, the long history of social, like, just manipulation, how to friends, all that sort of thing. One thing that Bernard definitely does socially, that which I don't know if I'm going to come across a little bit Clint Eastwood with kids on my lawn when I say this kind of thing. It seems like people especially on this show. Last week it was Mariah. They're just super comfortable, cheeks out, like full cake on display, just chatting, having a good old conversation with a mate. Seemingly Horacio's just there. Yeah, we'll talk about social game with your butt out. This it's they're very cool with mundane conversations with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. No, I definitely noticed that obviously she's going to have her cheeks out later on in the actual challenge as well. I don't know how the viewership numbers are doing, but I feel like it should start going up week in and week out. I mean, you and I are back every week to watch it, you know, so I'm sure other people are jumping on board as well. But yeah, very interesting conversation. The next day, we get a little bit of a scene here between the likes of a Callum and Emmanuel, talking about the fact that Horacio is someone that they should look out for, potentially. They call him the Wolf of Wall Street, which I don't know why. Like Horacio, like I don't know if you've seen The Wolf of Wall Street before. You know, I'm a big Wolf of Wall Street fan. I like the movie. Obviously, I work in sales as well. A lot of contact centers that I've worked for have got that kind of buzz around it. But Horacio doesn't really come across as like a Jordan Belfort. Like I don't feel like he would be the biggest salesperson out there. So the nickname kind of confused me a little bit here.
You don't remember in Ride or Dies when he had his 4th elimination win? He's like, "I'm not leaving. I'm not."
All right.
He grabbed the microphone. "I'm not leaving."
Yeah,
you missed that.
That's it. Yeah,
it was after he threw the little person.
Yeah. Now I remember. Yeah, I've completely forgotten about that. It's just they can't get rid of him. You know, they can't get rid of him. And you know who else they couldn't get rid of last season? Chris Underwood. So maybe that's a good omen for him this season. Chris is saying Bernard's the expert in having a bad social game. Exactly. So, you know, Horacio, I don't feel like he was there for the advice. Maybe he was there for the cheeks being out. Who knows? Like, why was he there listening to her about the social game and how he should be strategizing? But it's interesting to see Callum and Emmanuel sort of talking about him here because we kind of know how things are going to turn out later on. But there's also a very emotional scene here with Callum talking about wanting to give back to his parents, wanting to help. And then Emmanuel also gets to talk about how his mom used to, you know, I believe go to the clinic for older people, only get like 10 euros for every trip that she did. Both of them there for their families, wanting to give back. We know that it's not going to end well for Emmanuel by the end of this, but are we seeing the Nelly T emotional story from back home with Emmanuel so that he sort of falls short in the end again? Because that's what they seem to do on the challenge quite a lot. They give us the emotional backstory with Nelly T every time wanting to work for his mom. Do you think Emmanuel is the Nelly T backstory, or do you think he's the Chris Underwood story about how the fans don't appreciate him and he's going to come back and win? Which one do you think we're getting here if you had to sort of make a call?
I don't know, to be honest with you, but in the moment, I really it struck me. I realized like there are different levels of players in this game as far as need goes. And the next scene that opened up, the fact that it was Callum talking about wanting to support his mom, Emmanuel, and it showed, I was like, oh yeah, he's literally from Romania. As far as anyone in this game that needs it, Emmanuel and his family. And then it sort of cuts to Michelle, who's a literal millionaire, who's one survivor already. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is like, for Emmanuel, like the amount of money in this US dollars for him is winning Survivor 3-4 times over. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, oh, this is huge. So I'm kind of hoping it will be Emmanuel, to be honest with you, as far as what
Mm,
impact it can have. Some of these people are lifelong, not lifelong, but career social media
challenges
people. They
and
career
challenges. They come
challenges,
back.
career social media. This is their life. Like James, I believe is huge from Geordie Shore. He's got a career made, kind of thing.
Mm,
So yeah, I realized I was like, oh yeah, this is like can be legitimate for some of these people
mm.
versus like an extra sort of notch on the bedpost as far as their social media influencer world goes. It's just another thing on the resume. But for some people, I'm hoping
Mm.
Emmanuel kind of does pull something out here. Like that really hit me.
Yeah, I felt, I was very upset about Emmanuel a couple of weeks ago and turning his back and saying, like I was heated, I was hot, I was in the moment,
Yeah,
when I
that's
said
right.
like bloody bad example of a champion, never be a champion. Yeah, I was very like cold on him, I know. And I actually had the opportunity to jump on Angel Cake Drew's stream afterwards because we a lot of the times do our lives now earlier if we do it live. And a lot more behind the scenes information came out about why Emmanuel probably did that. And maybe the optics didn't look good with Jordan having his moment there, which you kind of try to get across as well. And I know you do a lot of extra sort of research prior to some of the lives where I can kind of see why it happened the way it happened. Like I'm a little bit less critical of that now. And I'm always one of those people. I'll be heated in the moment, but I'll look like I'm big enough to say when maybe my take was a little bit wrong in that regard, and I feel like I can get behind Emmanuel. He seems like a good guy. Again, there's the whole language barrier that he's struggling with and all that kind of stuff, and it wasn't good. Like, I still don't like turning your back on someone, but I can understand more why it potentially happened because people thought Jordan was sort of getting in production's ear and production was helping him out there and that kind of stuff, which I don't think happened either. I just think that it was bad optics and the way that everything was communicated. I'd blame production more for that than anyone
Yeah,
else at the end of the day. But I've
which we
turned
always do.
around. Yeah, I've turned around on him a little bit. Like, I feel like I'm okay with him. And obviously, hearing his backstory, I mean, how can that not soften up your heart a little bit, because of the fact that he wants to bring the money back home as well. But Willie Lloyd here says that Emmanuel is the Chris Underwood because Nelson is more fun and entertaining than Emmanuel. I definitely agree. Nelson definitely is more fun and entertaining. But I feel like Emmanuel maybe has a little, like, I don't remember if Emmanuel was good at like the puzzly stuff in his season because, like Danica says, I still believe that season he was protected by Tori quite a bit in that season. So I don't remember how he did on that. But from a physical standpoint, I think he's definitely a threat out there. Chris says, well, look who is slowly changing their tune on good old Emmanuel. Chris, you've listened to me long enough to know that, I'm one of those people. I lead by my emotions in the moment. Like, I will, like, even if you look at Survivor, where I started on Emily and where I am now on Emily, I'm always open to changing my mind about people, but I'm always going to be authentic in the moment how I feel about it. Like, if I don't like something, I'm going to say like, this was BS. I don't like how he acted in that moment. But again, I feel like I understand it a bit better now with some of the backstory. Always open to changing my mind. Danica saying, I do think the cost of living in Romania would mean his MTV money goes further. I agree. I also think the hot screwed on right. He got screwed on Ride or Dice when they pulled him and Emmy. Yeah, definitely. Was sad to see him go. I guess they're at the end, and then seeing everybody help Devin as well. One of the things I still don't like about the arena and the challenge is when players on the sideline is able to help players inside of the arena, which I actually think for this specific episode it backfired more than anything else. But it can be a massive advantage sometimes when you're playing the game. I also wanted to bring up a little bit of the scene here early on between Corey and Melissa hanging out. They talk about, how close they are. A little bit of that. We know that it's going to come back later on in the episode with that relationship and what happened there. Maybe we'll talk about that when it blows up a little bit further down the line. But just an interesting scene early on here. And then we go straight into the daily challenge. Now, what did you think of the daily challenge, Kahuna? Did you like it? Were you for it, against it? How did it play out on TV?
Anytime you have the high fly, like above the water, the high challenges, it always adds a level because there's going to be someone that's scared, and if it's not someone like Darrell who's just deathly scared of heights, you have someone like a Mariah or Olivia who's had nose jobs in the past, and there's different reasons, there's different motivations, so there's always something to add to it. I
Yeah.
appreciated that. I like we got to see Jay kind of do his, monkey climbing skills, like being a climber. So that anytime you have those high rise ones with ropes and there's that the chance of falling, it can be scary. I kind of dug it. It required the communication aspect. It was, but I don't know. Like there wasn't. It was all right, I guess. Not too much to it. It wasn't like a bad one at all, but
Pretty straightforward. Pretty straightforward. I mean, I don't feel like we necessarily learned anything new. I mean, we saw Jay do extremely well in something that he should do well in, being a rock
Yeah.
climber. Olivia once again proving how much of a badass she is. Like, yes, she missed it the first time, but saved it, then got back out there and actually did a really good job, I thought, on the challenge. And again, she's just one of those girls that throw herself head into things first. Obviously, the landing wasn't as smooth, but at least the performance on the actual pyramid, she was definitely doing her part. James and Melissa and Emmanuel ended up being in a team, which was interesting to see. James had his moment of freaking out, which was, I mean, man, like he really got injured bad. He got pulled. That's the challenge that got him pulled from the Challenge UK. So I can understand where the fear came from in regards to that. Then we had Zara, Caleb, and Michelle. They weren't really that impressive. Then we probably saw a lot here from Horacio. I've been very impressed by Raven this season. Like, I think Raven is a girl who also has longevity in the challenge because she's throwing herself at a lot of these things. Yes, her social game is a mess. Yes, she is talking to people when she shouldn't, but that's something that can get better with time, right, Kahuna? If Raven keeps coming back, I feel like she'll learn.
And I think in reality, like, the reason why she found herself in hot water was because of, like, showmans. Like, she got close to Kieran's UK. Automatically there's going to cause issues there. What can you say? What can't you say? Michelle's a little bit more, veteran, a little bit more savvy at negotiating that sort of thing. So is keeping, as much as she's getting close to Callum, is devastated by his loss, etc. But she kind of was good at keeping a wall between strategy stuff and, romance stuff. And Raven maybe is negotiating that for the first time in a show like this. So, I think she's proving herself as far as any of the challenges go.
She's physically in
she's
it.
great.
Like, she's in every single challenge. Like, she's doing extremely well. We had, obviously, in that team, we had Berna with her cheeks out, doing what she's doing up there, adding a little bit of extra to the challenge. Nairus, Mariah, Ed, and Asaf, they should have had an advantage, but Mariah not willing to take one for the team with that nose job, which ended up costing them maybe a little bit of time. They should have had an advantage. Ultimately, Kylan, Big T, and Horacio do end up winning this, with Kylan and Horacio doing really well at putting the puzzle together on the other side on the pyramid, and Big T communicating extremely well there. But let's have a look at a few of the comments before we talk about the ultimate decision that needed to be made. We've got Chantel Reality Realness here in the channel. For those who are not aware and maybe new to our content, Chantel always jumps on the channel when we do our draft at the beginning of the season. And this year all of our schedules have been busy. Otherwise, we would have definitely tried to collaborate a little bit more. But go check out Reality Realness, great channel for any reality TV. And she says, Emmanuel may have a nice story playing for his mom, but his social media personality is so unsavory. And Chantal, I can say, I haven't really been following. Like, I've not had time to be on social media at all. Outside of watching the episodes, podcasting, that's it. My social media has been I've been tapped out when it comes to that. But hopefully, having a break at the end of the year, going into next year, I'll be able to get back on it a little bit more. Chris here says, hi, Chantel, agreed. He was so weird with Big T this week on Twitter, and his back and forth with Game of F, weirdo. So obviously there's some beef going in.
As well.
The Twitter world of it all. Danica says, I don't follow him, but do you think language translation thing, or is he being a jerk? I can't say anything in regards to that. He knows English well enough. He's being a jerk on purpose. Reality, they're really going in on him. Like, I've softened up, and suddenly now the crowd has moved on. Last time, everybody was upset at me for being upset at him.
We're too slow. We finally come around, slow turning ship. And they're just agile, like back and forth.
Him and Corey share those weirdo vibes, apparently. Oh, girl, do not get me started on Corel. I'm a true hater. I still love Corey, and we're going to talk about it. Like, I don't know anything about the online, but what Corey brings from a TV side of things, I'm here for it. And I definitely have some thoughts, and we'll talk about it when the big Corey blow up happens later on. But let's have a chat first about the decision that Horacio, Kylan, and Big T needs to make in this moment. Horacio gets steamrolled in this moment, and Big T and Kylan hijacks this move to go after Emmanuel. He didn't really want to go after Emmanuel. That wasn't something that he was sort of interested in pursuing this early in the game. But Kylan is trying to force him to play a bit more of a game where he's got agency compared to the previous season where he was a rookie and he didn't have that agency. Do you think that Kylan helped Horacio in this moment with his game, or do you think that he's done more damage than good here?
Horacio, like for all, like, you know, this man is, for all intents and purposes, at least this season, he is the face of the challenge, front and center on the posters. The good looking pretty boy that is dominant in challenges, really good physically, conquers eliminations, but he cannot like just find his own voice, like stand up for what he wants and really direct. And maybe that's what's going to be the difference in being the next leader of the challenge, and like what sets Bananas and a Jordan apart is that they kind of have the balls to back up what they say and what they want, right? Rather than going with the flow. And so far, Horacio has really struggled with saying names. And the only time that he did was like the first episode with Big T. And it kind of, you know, it was at the wrong time, wrong place where he found a voice and then kind of immediately retracted back into himself.
You see, the only problem I have with Horacio, I like Horacio. He seems like a really nice guy. And I mean, obviously, I picked him in my draft. I really want him to win. I want him to be that guy, that athlete that comes back after, you know, winning so many eliminations last season, getting pulled because Olivia got injured. To come back and win the season would be amazing for him, right? The only thing I don't like is the Captain America sort of edit around him. Like he's the good guy, he's the hero, you know, everything's got to be like righteous and, you know, I'm gonna be straightforward, the good old boy. You know, I'm a villain fan. Like I like the villains. I like the people that mix stuff up, piss people off, you know, burn their socks, like whatever you need to do, you know, throw water out of the canteen. That's me, you know, like I'm the guy that likes the villains, right? And he's just like, this game is made for villains, Kahuna. It's not made 100%. For people to be the good guy, the good old boy. You know, I feel like nice guys finish last. Nice guys finish last.
I never thought of that before. But if you think about the goats of the game, as far as Bananas, Jordan, CT, Wes, have all been
the bad boys,
villains. It's like the bad guys, and even on the women's side, as far as Cara Maria and Laurel, probably like two very villainous women as well. Like you're right, they can kind of. This game is not made for, and Tori's kind of finding her villain arc, whether she wants it or not. The internet's making her that's for sure. Interesting. Horacio doesn't have that in him, which is really fascinating. You know, like
it makes me wonder if he could. It makes me wonder if he could truly win this season, and especially now because you know he's still seen as someone in that alliance, and Emmanuel feels a certain type of way after this. Even when they have that conversation, we're jumping ahead at the club, he's still like, you know, well, I know you couldn't do what you couldn't do, but I'm still, you know, when I get an opportunity, I'm gunning for you. So he's now in the crosshair of someone that he wasn't because of his inability to get his point across. And then he also tries to go around and he doesn't really own it, you know, that the vote went that way, and he's trying to be the nice guy, which I feel like is not going to play out well towards the end of this season. But like I said, Kylan and Big T definitely doing the right thing here because they get Emmanuel out, you know, and Emmanuel is not Team UK. He's definitely with Team US. So it's a great move for them at this stage from their point of view. But I feel like for Kylan as well, Kylan is tanking his game because Kylan was kind of seen as someone with Team US. But maybe Kylan is more aware of his placement in Team US, which was always at the bottom, right? Like he's like, I'm an attachment to them, so I may as well try and find an alliance where I have got more power. So when I think about it, it might at surface level look like Kylan's doing a bad job, but is he really? Because I don't feel like anybody was really going to go to bat for him later on in the game.
It's always smart to do whatever you can to solidify whatever he's doing with Melissa. If you can make it better for Melissa, it's better for him in the long run. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Let's have a look at the chat, what people are saying here. We've got Danica saying, hey, everyone, can't seem to see people, or at least I can't see it on my end. Not sure what's happening on that side, Danica. We've got a few people here in the live. Chris is saying, let me be clear. I like Emmanuel, the player, not the personality. That's fair. That's fair. I can fully appreciate that. And then Corey pisses me off even more this episode. We'll talk about that. Chris is saying, I usually don't like using this phrase, but Horacio needs to man up. He is so boring and has no backbone this season.
You know what he needs, Chris? He needs a night away with the girls at the sanctuary, and he can just like have some Kenny Loggins time with and farting and like Survivor reference for those who watch both shows. He needs a night with the boys.
At least a little bit of Bastille in him.
Bumps. Yeah.
Danica saying, I think Horacio is too nice for the challenge. Agree. Chris says Landon was always a good guy on the challenge, but Horacio is no Landon. I think even though Landon was a good guy, Landon was that kind of guy where he's a good guy, but you knew if you effed around, you would find out. Like he had that aura about him. Like people didn't want to piss him off. Like, you know, he was very stoic in his approach. Willie says, I know people tend to think that Horacio is too much of a good guy and he is boring, but Darrell was a good guy and yet people love him. That's true. It's a very good point. And I think that Darrell probably had that because Darrell came from, what was it, Road Rules prior to that? Was it Real World or Road Rules?
No, he was Road Rules.
Yeah, so he came from Road Rules. So people already had that love for him that was developed from a completely different show coming into the challenge, I feel like, right? I never watched Road Rules, so I don't know how popular he was in Road Rules. Chris says, because Darrell has an interesting personality and is funny. Yeah, that is true. That is true. He does have a funny personality. Like he's quite witty with some of the things that he says. Horacio, I don't know, like I feel like he's one of those people. Like, is Horacio potentially? Let me put this out there, and chat can tell me what they think. Is Horacio potentially male Casey?
Casey,
Could he? Because he's physically capable, but personality. And even Casey came out and had a bit more of a personality on.
I thought you were going to say Jenny West for a second. I was like,
no, I could see, but Jenny West is a champion. I guess Casey's a champion as well. Yeah, I could see either or. Yeah, it could easily be. But I feel like Casey maybe is brutal because Casey had like World Championships. She had like some fun moments and showed a little bit of fight in her that season.
Yeah, that's right. Remember when she was trying to be like the opening where they're getting to meet people and she was all like social Casey? Like, I'm going to use my social game. We're like, what?
What social game? Chris agrees. Yes, male Casey, true furniture behavior. Reality realness says Darrell is better in confessionals. He is hilarious. I think that is potentially the difference there. I'm not hating. This is not a hate Horacio podcast, by the way. But just, yeah, there's something off about the good guy behavior, trying to be the good guy the whole time here. And even Jay called him out here, not being able to fire shots when he was struggling to come up with a name, even after they already decided. Going into the next day here, we have a few people talking. We've got the whole scene with the date that happens, I believe, with Michelle around this time. Michelle and Callum getting closer and closer. This is not looking good for Michelle. Probably people in the live would know if this is a thing after the show. Like, are we seeing Michelle and Callum hang out outside of the show? Because I started feeling like she's falling for this guy. She's actually falling in love, doing all this extra stuff for him, getting the surprise. Callum, you know, he's very sort of aware of the fact that Michelle is keeping him safe in the game. It felt like there was an element of game from Callum here. He's definitely not a one-woman girl by the sounds of it.
I mean, he even used
the line.
He said he's got his fingers in a lot of pies. I was like, like, so too many is the problem, Callum. There you go.
Ooh. Yeah, so Chris coming and saying it is not a thing. Michelle has been very open about how embarrassed she is by this Callum stuff, obviously because Callum had a girlfriend coming into the game. So, yeah, it's actually quite cringy, some of these relationships to see. The only one that I kind of like is the Horacio Nariz one. It feels like the only one that could potentially turn into something.
Melissa and Kylan?
Melissa and Kylan, I feel like won't be a thing. Like, I just don't see that lasting. I'm sure it's not going to last. And then who's the other one? Mariah and James. Like, James is already seeing other girls as soon as he gets back to the UK. Mariah is absolutely screwing herself this season by hooking up with James. And now the Banana Man is going to find out about it because Devin is going to go
By the
tell
way, I just
Tori.
want to say, in your draft episode, right? I made a comment in the thing because I'd heard that Mariah cheated on Bananas, which is why Bananas didn't go, and that's how what's his name, Brad gets a call up, and I wrote that, and I think it was either Chris. It might have been Chris or maybe Dolores or Nick. I can't remember, but someone called me out. No spoilers. And I didn't realize I had been spoiled. I thought it was like happened preseason before it even went down. I didn't realize it was like on the show happening. So I remembered now, like I was like, oh crap. I might have put a spoiler alert unknowingly. Someone mentioned, I thought it happened long before they kind of went out and stuff.
Yeah, this is the reason a lot of people, may think that there's definitely an element of me not wanting to go too deep down the rabbit hole after, the show's done on social media. But I do feel like I kind of protect myself from spoilers a lot of the times because I don't get all that much into the social media stuff when it comes to the challenge. Because I feel like the challenge is probably the show that gets spoiled the most out of all of the shows that I follow. Like all the information is on Twitter if you want it. I just stay away from it as much as I can because I don't want to be spoiled. But yeah, she's definitely screwing herself up, I think, for future seasons. Maybe an X's season, who knows? But it's not looking good for her at this stage at all. Let's have a look at what people are saying here. Chris, we've seen that one. Willie says no, Harasi isn't like Casey because at least Harasi can bring something in confessionals, unlike Casey, who was invisible. Really, Willie? Like, listen, Willie, I love you, man. Like, I appreciate all the support, but this is one of those ones where I just don't see Horacio doing anything in the confessionals. Like, he's not doing anything for me. Like, it's very bland and straightforward. I just don't see it. Yeah, Reality Realness also thinks this. Listen, nice guy. I just don't see it. Chris says it's not a thing. Michelle has been very okay. So we've seen that one. Reality says, and then she watched the episode and has a girlfriend back home. They aren't together.
Oh.
That's true. Yep. Danica says someone needs to take Horacio under their wing, like CT did with Big T. I could see it now. Michelle teaching him how to grit his teeth and growl. Chris says Devon's nosy ass running back to Bananas to report him. Shush up, Devon. I feel like he's going to go to
the giant as well. Looks
I feel like he's
Mariah's
going to
definitely banging that giant over there.
Yeah, I feel like he's going to Tori first, and Tori probably will. Tori and Bananas are pretty close. Danica saying, "Do you think Bananas was out there and then said no? Then they got Brad." Yeah, I mean, who knows? Like, if you're Bananas and you're out there and this thing's happening, last thing you want to do is be on the season. Like, I feel like you would remove yourself from the situation.
I saw a little video on YouTube from the challenge where it was talking to the champs who are going to obviously be the invader champs or whatever. And they were sort of asking funny questions like, who's the funniest in the champ house? Like, they were all in one place together. And someone was like Bananas, and then everyone else said Devon, like Devon's the funniest. And I'm like, oh, they must be sequestered together or something. And maybe Bananas heard it there and pissed off, like got out of there or something after the fact. They're not flying in, flying out, maybe. I don't know. But it just felt like there was a thing. I was like, are they staying together in one location? Because that's kind of the
think
vibe
so.
that I got. Yeah.
I would think so. I
So
mean,
he's going to find out then if he is there.
Probably the cheapest.
He was in
probably the cheapest to do it that way as well. I'm kind of gutted that we haven't seen, like, after, I guess, like,
after
behind the scenes, or the behind the scenes, what's happening in the champion house. Like, that would have been pretty cool, like what we've had in the past when they go to the redemption house, so but obviously that would have probably been, they'd have to pay the champions more, or because there's cameras on them and all this kind of stuff. So there'd be a reason for why they didn't do it. They'd have to pay extra camera people to be there. So for budget reasons, they probably didn't go down that way. But I feel like there would be some real gold in that house. I mean, imagine Cara Maria and Jordan living in the same house. Like, there would be some drama for sure. And we missed out on that. But let's go back into this episode at the club. They all sort of get together, have their scene, have a bit of fun, and then the alliance that never fully got up off its feet here. The Biker Chicks Alliance is formed, with Ed being the biker and the chicks being Big T and Melissa. Loved how they did the confessional with this, full on Photoshop biker chicks, montage or image at the background. And then Ed's like, yeah, this is not happening. They're trying to drag me down with them.
You know what I love about Ed, man? Like, I grew up in the 80s loving WWF/WWE wrestling, and I feel like
Mm,
Ed, just every time he talks,
he
he
does,
just
yeah.
gives WWE wrestler vibes. Even when
Mm,
he's just giving a normal he's like, "I tell you what, brother," is that like everything about him is just exuding that like promo cutting wrestling vibes, and I kind of love that. He
yeah.
just looks like a wrestler to me.
But it's interesting because Ed's a funny guy. Like I remember the first season that he played. Like I really enjoyed like the stuff that he did from a comedy perspective and his confessionals and that. And they do go to him every now and again, but he's kind of invisible this
Yeah,
season. Like we're not getting a lot of content from him, which probably isn't a good thing. I'd say if
yeah.
he was to be someone that's going to go deep in the game.
I remember a few times where he kind of stood out this season for me was these little tiny
Funny
throwaway
sound bites.
one-liners or something, and it was always usually solo. Like he'd go into the challenge by doing a flip, and I was like, that's Ed. But I realized that it's not storylines linked with anyone. There's not like
Mm,
it's all very isolated islands of type things for just Ed being
mm,
Ed and with no one else, which is not a good sign for him.
mm. The only other interesting scene here that I want to talk about from the club was Callum trying to paint a target on Rusa's back, saying that she is potentially the queen and then that she's got people in front of her that are protecting her, having that conversation with Emmanuel. But obviously, he's not going to be there to take the shot later on. So I do wonder if that's something that is going to come back and it's going to stick in Emmanuel's head that, he needs to go after that. I feel like Emmanuel feels really comfortable with the US alliance. Like he's somehow
Mm.
landed with them more than anything else. So probably not something that's going to now be anything, but it gives us maybe a little bit of perspective of how well Nerus is playing the social game at this stage, where she's got soldiers in front of her.
That's what we always like. We must miss so much because they come out with these lines, and you're like when they kept saying how amazing they all thought Kieran was. He must be
Mm,
so great at this. And someone said in this one, Emmanuel's a great competitor. Like and I'm like, where are they? And then the Nerys thing, like Nerys is the queen. I'm like, what are we missing in the edit? Like, what are we? They're obviously
mm,
seeing something to make these calculations where it then becomes a bold statement to say someone is in charge or someone is the best competitor or the
mm,
strongest or the smartest. There's stuff there that we're missing. And it's a testament to, like you said, Nerys is obviously playing a very social game beyond
mm,
what we're seeing. To maybe it's just alpha vibes. I don't know, like, the cream rises to the top. And I know not to, this is going to sound really wanky, but I've always sort of been, without necessarily seeking it out, some people just go to leadership type positions or people look to them for
mm.
guidance and that sort of, I don't know, maybe that's what it is in the house
It's the
sometimes. It's
voice,
kind of a
Kahuna.
natural
It's,
thing. Yeah.
it's the voice. You've got a very soothing voice. So people just want to be like, they want some Kahuna time so they can sit
That's
down
what
and
it
have a
is.
chat, because leadership is all about counseling. Half of the time you're counseling people, and you've got that voice. Yeah, that's
So,
what
yeah,
drag. Yeah,
maybe that's what it is in the race. Like she just
yeah.
finds herself that the people are drawn to that
I
and
think I
ends
think
in
you
the
make a
queen position.
Yeah, on a more serious note, I think you make a good sort of observation here. The fact that Nerys is someone that's very strong willed and is not afraid to make a decision in a house where there are so many people afraid of making decisions, I think is probably playing into her favor at this stage, because she's got the confidence of a vet, even though she isn't a vet, when it comes to making decisions. And I think people are happy for someone else to take direction and fall in line and fall behind. And she's kind of filled that
Yeah.
role for a lot of these rookies playing this season. They now have someone that can take the hits, make the decisions, and probably why her and Horacio could do extremely well in the future, because she would be the brains behind the operation, and
Lady Macbeth. Yeah.
she's physically, she's not too bad either. But then Horacio is a beast at the physical stuff, but he doesn't want to make decisions, so he doesn't need to make those decisions. Nerys will make those decisions for the couple moving forward in the game, and I feel like that's probably how it would be out in life as well between the two of them. I feel like she would be probably wearing the pants in that relationship if they were to move ahead. But you
Almost
need
like
that, the yin and yang, mate. They balance each other out.
Yeah, in the game, almost like a little bit of an anti Paulie and Cara Maria, where Paulie was really the decision driving car Maria, went along with it, but physical beast, able to, carry your own in that regard. But
Had the
Paulie was
aura, had the
the evil
connections.
mastermind,
Yeah, she had all the connections back then as well. So it's a very interesting observation. So we may have a new power couple moving forward in the game. But another interesting scene here on the next day after the club is how all the Americans come together to make a decision that Corey is going to be the next person that they're going to go for. They still don't trust him. They still don't know where his allegiances is within the game. And, Michelle is just not willing to put her neck out on the line here for Corey at this stage because the momentum is too much in favor of voting against him. And Corey, he kind of made his own bet when he voted for Asaf, and he misread the house, and he's still paying for it right now, even in the game.
Yeah, I mean, like it's almost like he specifically chose the worst possible person that there was multiple people ahead of on the list. He went down to Asaf, who we happened to see confessionals of them being bestest friends ever. Like, and then to turn against that felt particularly personal, especially to Asaf. He was never going to let that go. And I don't know if Corey is aware of how deep Asaf goes with obviously Jay and by extension other members of the US Alliance ahead of Corey.
That was the miscalculation. He didn't realize how well Asaf was connected. Obviously, Jay has been bragging about this undercover alliance that he's had the whole season and how effective it is. And then Corey manufactured or manifested this whole undercover sort of alliance himself, and he became a spy that no one was aware of within his alliance. He went out there to get information that no one knew he got, didn't let anybody know that this was his game plan, but then magically presents this great master plan at the nominations about how he's been working for his alliance the whole time. And his alliance is like, man, this guy's good when he plays double agent. We didn't even realize that this was a plan. We didn't even realize that this was happening.
Wow. Like the one thing that this season has done well, as far as like, is just having the absolute best performances that are like sinking your own game. In the actual deliberation. We started with Jessica just talking herself right down into the sand. Chauncey was almost just as bad, and now Corey just throwing like wild stuff out there. The secret spy, and just like taking a dump on two people that thought he was really on their side, like so publicly, and so humiliatingly. Like, it was weird.
It was very difficult to watch. Especially when like everybody knows, like I like what Corey brings to the show from a villain perspective, and I feel like we found our new villain. I feel like Corey's going to come back, and the public are going to cry about it because he's definitely getting the call back because he's doing a lot that producers would love this season. And unlike when Josh did it a couple of seasons ago, it doesn't feel fake or manufactured. It feels real, because Josh, he kind of tried to be the villain. And he would make up stuff and he would play to the cameras. Corey's got none of that. It is real beef with Corey and some of these people because of some of the moves that he's making. But one thing I will say, even as someone that is liking the birth of a new villain on the challenge, and I'm really enjoying that, it was very difficult to watch that conversation that he had with Big T about her sexuality, if her parents knew about it, and connecting at that level. And then saying all of that was just gameplay. That is cold, man. Like even I can't defend him on that. That is cold.
Because the weird thing is as well is that that's not true. He wasn't game playing when he's having that conversation.
No, it was a real conversation. Yeah.
And then he turned it out later, which really like I don't even know what's worse is that you had a genuine conversation and then you cheapen it, or if you actually like faking it from the get-go when it's gameplay. Like it's almost worse the other way around. But I don't understand, like I know you're saying the villain side, but I appreciate when we see the villainy or the villainous, the villainy, but also when it's smart. I don't like seeing villains that it's just this dumb play. Like what does pointing the finger at two people that possibly can't take any votes, like
it's not smart play. Yeah.
Like that's what I mean. Play. Like, be a villain when it's smart. Like Wes is going, like as a villain, Wes is and Bananas are both going, What is that? Like,
What are you doing? Yeah, for sure.
be a villain, but make it work out for you at least. If you're gonna cop some flack,
Mm,
if you're gonna cop all the eyes and the hate and everything,
mm,
make it be at least beneficial in some sense. It did nothing
mm.
for his game except sink it even worse.
Yeah, I feel like if Corey was on Survivor, he'd probably be cancelled or banned from coming back and playing the game again because Survivor doesn't want people like Corey playing anymore. They don't want spicy personalities on their show like
Mm.
that. I say that Emily's been spicy, but in a different way. She's not been villainous, I don't think.
No.
No, but it's interesting. You make a really good point there. Like, listen, I by no means think that he's playing a smart game, but he's definitely doing something that is villainous within the game that is going to give him a reputation where if he comes back, they're going to be like, oh, wow, this was the guy who fakely connected with someone based on the fact that, they had something in common and then turned their back on that person in the game. I feel like in a lot of other shows, it would be the end of you on that show moving forward. But the challenge loves the drama that brings, and they'll probably bring him back in the
I
future.
mean, absolutely. Next episode, they'll be randomly selected together.
Yeah. It would be a random
challenge.
Yeah, 100%. Let's have a read of a few more of the comments here that have come in since we've spoken about it. Chris says, I think they were more in a hotel situation, not a house. Danica says, I thought we saw previews early on in the season with Tori talking to Mariah about the James thing. I thought that meant the champs move into or visit the house. Maybe I imagined it. I think that is Devin running as fast as he can to Tori after this specific elimination to give her the tea. I think that's what's going to happen there.
Maybe
Danica
Tori's next week's champ.
No, it's Casey. You saw the
that's Casey next week.
In.
Okay.
Yeah. Danica says, Kahuna, we're missing the shit they should have shown at the MTV used to show at the end of the season. That's true. That would have been good. Chris says Nerys has to make those decisions for Nelson's dumbass behind as well. So she has the experience of doing that.
She's a vet now. She had to carry Nelson strategically.
Yeah. Chris says, Big T and Melissa had every right to be mad. It is a male elim day, and Corey's attempt to save himself was to go after the two women. Definitely grasping at straws. Willie says, people now might think that Corey isn't loyal and is a wild card. Yeah, I do think that it's blown up in his face more than anything else. Chris says, then going after Big T and Melissa on his social media, trying to defend himself when he used personal shit, I can't stand him. Yeah, I haven't watched the social media stuff, and I feel like there also needs to be an awareness after the game that, listen, maybe, I was villainous, it was a game, whatever. Yeah, maybe I went a little bit too far. Like, if you've got to be able to be self-aware as well, because I do think he went a bit far on this one. Like, I can't defend him. Even though I really like to see that villain on the show, I can't defend that. Like, you've got me on that.
Even the delivery was so like,
it was off.
If
it was off.
If it was true and you said it and you're like, look, I'm really sorry, it's part of the game, but he was like, so, and he was so like mean and catty about it in the moment as well. Yeah, I'm like, oh, dude, like, little bit of sugar, not so much with the harshness. Yeah.
Corey, Allen, Amanda as partners for the villains. Amanda. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, she's kind of, but she's more of a fun villain. I feel like Amanda is a fun villain. Willie Lloyd says, I hope Big T and Melissa called Corey out in the reunion. Chris says, exactly, Kahuna. He should have put a target on another man instead of going after a woman the house is already against. That's true. Danica says, at Chris, he went after Big T and Melissa. He's sinking further down the ladder to me. Do you think he's playing to production, or is this just his personality? I don't think he's playing to production. I think this is his personality. I feel like with Josh, you could see him playing to production. I don't see it with Corey. Reality Realness says, I'm not sure if he will be asked back. Melissa and Big T had an Instagram live stating that he was taking pictures of Big T. They don't feel safe around him.
Oh.
What? That's a bit rough. Well, if that's true, then that's not good. I'm sure they wouldn't bring him back in that case. Chris says, Danica, he is desperate to be on TV. In my opinion, he will do what he needs to do to stay on it. Maybe he'll be in House of Villains season 2 after this season. Still a show that I haven't watched either, but nominations doesn't go well for him. He does end up getting thrown in, and then we go straight to the arena. Now, Kahuna, I had a big theory last week when I covered the episode on my own here on the podcast, and I said, I think I've worked out what the third potential option is. I think it's going to be Champion's Choice. And for those that think I'm spoiled, I had no freaking idea. but I'm so happy that I called it and that I was right, because we do get Devin here with the champion's choice. He gets the choice to pick whoever he can on that's currently in the game, except for those that won, I guess, in this round here. And he's looking for advice from his allies, from people he's worked with in the past. And the best that Michelle can do in that moment, because she doesn't want to give her game away, is say keep Jay safe, which is common knowledge that they're a duo. And then Mariah, was it Mariah who said keep James safe or something? I can't remember who else. So she was pretty obvious. She was pretty obvious about that as well. So Devin is like, you guys are not helping me, and he just takes a random shot at Callum, someone he doesn't know in the game, to go down there and face him, which leaves Michelle so upset, and everybody's like, how dare Devin do this? Like, how could he have done this? This is the worst thing he could have done, when none of them tried to save Callum in that moment. Like, how, like he said, he's not Nostradamus. Like, how the hell should he have known that Callum and Michelle was hooking up? What a mess.
He needs to work on his mind reading capabilities, because how else is he supposed to be able to do exactly what Michelle wants with zero information whatsoever? So, like, read her eyes, like she's sending it to him telepathically or something. That was crazy. Should have said something at least, but that's what you get. Like, it does make sense. He's looking up there, right? There's and people that he doesn't know. He assumes that they on the other side, being UK versus US, one of them's a giant dude that he doesn't want to test just in case, and one of them's Callum. That's who you're going for.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's just shocking. Like, I mean, like, it's not like Michelle would have given away the KFC's recipe, the Colonel's recipe here, because she's been hooking up with Callum. Yeah, she's been hooking up with him the whole season. Like, what game is she giving away by saying keep Jay and Callum out of your mouth? Like, and I'm sure Devin would have probably followed through. So this is a bit of tea here. Chris says Devin picked Callum because Devin was hooking up with Jessica. Jessica from the Challenge Australia, who was eliminated earlier in the season. And Jessica told Devin to pick Callum if he had a chance to do it. Wow.
There you go.
That's interesting. Well, he was always going to choose someone instead. Like, it's a TV moment. He knows the producers want to see it. So it was always going to be a case of him picking someone. And because of this, Corey and Emmanuel has their lucky day. They don't have to face the wrath of Devin, the current champion of the challenge, and they get to sit out of this one. Lucky for them. And it is a showdown between Devin and Callum. And we spoke a little bit about this, arena earlier, and the specific head-to-head that they had to do with carrying these crates over to their section and then having to count the different content that is inside of it, and then sort of having to go from, I think it was from the largest to the smallest, or the smallest to the largest number. They had to basically put them in order here. What did you think of it overall? Did you like this? How did this play out for you on TV? For me, it was a little bit of a bust.
Yeah, no, I didn't I didn't like it. I do appreciate that they give Devin a non-physical task, something that he can, and Devin still, everything that he said is true. Like, as far as challenges go, it did require a very, very strong sense of resilience, that mental fortitude, the endurance, not necessarily physical, but like mental endurance as well, to count through the crowd, the pressure, all that sort of thing. All valid, but really, it's counting stuff in a box. Like, it was boring. But again, I kind of appreciated how hard the editors worked. Like, they were putting a lot of seasoning to just bring it up to basic levels of entertainment, But so they did that well. Like, really, it did look like a good TV product as far as the presentation goes. But when you go, they were counting stuff in a box. Like, they were counting stuff in a box. That's what it is.
Yeah, it was definitely like watching paint dry on a wall for me as well. It wasn't the most entertaining. I mean, it was fun seeing Callum trying to play dirty by kicking one of the items away, but Devin kept track of that, knew what to do. I actually think that people helping Callum from the sidelines and trying to shout out numbers at him actually probably didn't work in his favor. And like Devin said, you just needed to be within your own head, be really slow with counting. But it also sounded like they were copying each other. It would have probably worked out better if both contents had different, like if both sides had different numbers in them, so they couldn't copy each other. I feel like would have probably been a better way to do it. Let's have a look at what people are saying here. Reality Realists is saying zero chaos, basically just strengthened the huge alliance. So going to sleep. But I mean, what do you expect? It's Devon. Devon is a part of the Vacation Alliance. Like, he's gonna work with the likes of Michelle and those people. And as far as he's aware, Corey is close to Michelle, so he's not going to take Corey out because he's close to Michelle, so he'll know about that. And then him and Emmanuel have got respect for each other because they've played a season together. So he said, I'm not going after people I know. I'm going to go after someone that I've got zero allegiance to, which is such a challenge vet thing to do, right? And that's what he did. Chris said it was boring. Elim, even with their editing tricks. Danica saying boring. They still managed to screw it up. Reality Room was saying, well, the editors could have put in a teeny bit more effort and show what the correct answers were. Yeah, that would have been good, eh? Like if they had the...
They never do that.
No. No, too much effort. Too much effort. Chris is saying Callum told Drew in his exit interview that after the Mud Daily, Callum went deaf in one of his ears, so Callum couldn't even hear the crowd shout out answers to him. Right.
He was
but I feel like
scheduled to go to hospital that night. Like he was like producers arranged for him to go to the hospital.
Wow.
If he wasn't in the elimination, like if he, after everything, just dressed in normal clothes, he was going from the game that night to get checked out. So the timing like ended up not needing the checkup in the end anyway. But yeah, so Callum was impacted.
Yeah, like listen, I feel like that could still have had an effect on him because he is so desperate to prove himself in front of Michelle, and he wants to be seen as the person who's doing well in front of her. And you know, even in the challenge, he was worried about that. Like, I feel like if Michelle's trying to shout advice to him, he's probably more focused at trying to hear when he's like, hey, what is this again? You know, like trying to get her involved instead of focusing at the task at hand. So I feel like it could have been a double whammy for him out there in any case. What's the verdict on Callum, Kahuna? Do you see a long and prosperous challenge career for Callum in the future? Do you think we see him coming back time after time again?
I think so. Like, he seems like the type of guy that they would like, in that, I mean, he's a good-looking dude. He seems physically capable. He's obviously there to hook up. He can be pretty messy in that regard. Doesn't matter if he's got someone at home. He's going to bring the drama that the producers want. And I mean, he got TJ's blessing. Kieran didn't even get the same blessing that Callum got. Like, he got the...
I'd rather see Kieran.
Again. Yeah, so would I. Like, if they were 1-for-1, I would rather see Kieran.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do think that the challenge is going to go into a new phase, and they need new blood through. And the little span where they went international for a long time, and they went down the path of, you know, the likes of the Gabbos and all that. But even the ones that were good, Kyles and stuff, they've seemed to pass along, and they need a new lot, a new generation that they can sort of start picking from. Otherwise, we're going to have the 40, 50-year-old thing, which is why I think they have Battle for a New Champ. And I think Callum could be amongst the flock. He's not going to be one of the leaders or whatever, but give him a couple more seasons. I'd be really interested to see what he does with a history, with a past, with whatever he's got going on with Michelle. Does he bring that into next season? And there's a lot that could come of it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for me, he's a miss. Like, I didn't get much from him, but I don't watch the challenge for the messiness. I hope he comes back for people who really do enjoy that on the show. But for me, I was like not that entertained by Callum this season. I think even from an athletic standpoint, I don't think he's up there. I don't think he can keep up with a lot of these guys that he goes up against in the show. So we'll have to see. But I've been wrong before. I'm more than happy for him to come back, prove me wrong, and have a great second season.
We always have the people that make up the numbers, right? You need the people that are, even the ones that have come back as regulars, like people like a Josh, right? Like, I know he's not that drama, but you need people that will be there, that they're probably never going to win, but you need numbers. And he's a reliable reality TV person that can perform okay. And I think he could be a number on a roster for someone like the challenge.
That's a fair point. Yeah. That's a fair point. Yeah, I can see a world where he does come back. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Because obviously, like Devin said, a lot of people liked him. He kind of felt bad about the fact he didn't choose James to come down there afterwards. And then also, with
once he knew what the challenge was,
with TJ saying, yeah, you didn't want to go up against the Giant and potentially like something where they had to wrestle. But
once I found out it was counting, I wish I'd picked James.
James is someone this season that's been a lot of fun as well, actually. Like, I've enjoyed him, but I feel like he's also getting on the older side. So I don't know how many seasons he's got in him.
Yeah.
And we'll have to see. Like, I actually want James just to make the final to see if he's got the endurance after seeing that elimination. I just want to see him run up a mountain. Like,
He's,
that would be hilarious.
he's probably not going to make it. I wonder if he'll end up being thrown into a CT, like a Titans kind of challenge. You know, like how I said they gave Jordan endurance one, they gave Devin a maths one. I wonder if
definitely CT's getting
like
strength.
Backpack. They give him the actual backpack challenge or something like that. You know, like just to give it a classic feel. That'd be fun.
If it's the backpack challenge, I hope he calls down Jay. We get the Jay backpack because he needs to take revenge on Jay. Like, can't have Jay have a 1-0 record against them. But that is it here for this week's coverage of the Challenge 39. I hope everybody had a lot of fun. Thank you for everybody that jumped on the live so late over in the US. We really appreciate it. It's been great having the conversation here back and forth and your questions. But if you're watching this at a later stage, if you really enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing to the channel. It does help with the growth of the channel. Put a like on this. It really does help as well. And click the notification bell so you can be informed the next time that we go live. For now, good night to everybody. Have a good sleep. And I hope you've got a good rest of your weekend. And we will catch you guys next week. Bye.